Another tip for mixing your colors is to remember that if you want to lighten a color, particularly from your main pure colors up here at the top, and you don't want to destroy the vibrancy or the saturation of the color, you need to use an analogous color rather than white to lighten it. For example, when we lightened the red here with yellow, we kept a nice, brilliant, strong saturation of color. The same was true with the green. When we lightened it with the yellow, which is an analogous color both to the green and the red, with the green it kept a good, rich, highly saturated color. It didn't dull it. But if you take red, for example, and you lighten your red with white, what do you get? You get, it can be a very nice color, but you basically get pink. And that is considerably duller and deadened in color. So if you want to keep the richness of the color, use an analogous color to lighten it up. And that's particularly true with your alizarin crimson, the orange here, and with the green. Now the problem, however, is if you try to use a yellow to lighten the blue or the purple here, it's not going to work. It's going to create a green. And in this case, with the yellow on here, it's going to create virtually a gray. So you can't lighten them up so much with the analogous color. It has to be with white, or if you have a tube color that's a lighter blue or a lighter purple. Now look at the purple here. If I take it and mix white with it, then I really start to see the purple by mixing the white. But if I add, in this case, if I add the yellow to it, it's going to deaden it and give it a much more neutral color and lose that saturated color. So with your blue and purple, you need to use white, and that'll keep it good and saturated. But when you're with greens and reds and oranges, you use the yellow to keep a good, rich saturation. And then when you mix these colors, for example, I've got this nice orange here. If I want to deaden that some, that's where I take my gray and mix a little gray with it to neutralize it considerably without messing with my other colors. So that's just a tip to keep in mind when you're mixing your colors and you want a nice red rose. Don't put white in that rose if you don't want to lose the intensity. There are a couple of things I want to mention before we go. One is, and I mentioned this earlier, but I can't emphasize it enough, is whenever you're mixing your colors, every time you go from one color to another, or you go up in here to grab your colors to mix, always wipe off your palette knife before you do any mixing. That will keep your colors pure and clean. That also goes for when you're actually painting. Every time when you're mixing a color, you pick up a color here and you pull it on your palette, on your canvas. When you come back down here to pick up more color, even if it's the same color, wipe off your brush first, pick up the color, put it on the canvas, 1 or 2 strokes, come back, wipe off the brush, then pick up your color. That will keep your colors pure and clean, and you will avoid getting mud on your canvas. The next thing, a lot of people ask me, well, when I mix all these colors in advance, gee, they're going to be wasted, they're going to dry up. Well, let me suggest a couple of things. One is when you mix them and you're going to be a while before you get to maybe a day or two even, try to mix them and leave them in globs that are as fat as possible and not strung out so that there's less surface area to dry. That's one thing. The other thing is that I take, when I know I'm not going to be using my palette for a day or two after I've mixed the colors, I take a little bottle, spray bottle, and I mix a 50-50 solution of clove oil and odorless turpentine. And I mix that up, and then when I'm got my palette laid out the way I want it, I just give it a few quick squirts, and that clove oil will create a film over the paint, which keeps the oxygen in the paint from oxidizing the paint, drying it out. And when I do this, I want to be careful not to put too much. It just takes a very thin layer. If you put too much, then the paint will get runny. But if you put a thin layer on it, you can mix this and come back a week later or 2 weeks later if you've kept it covered, and it'll still be good to paint with.